We just finished recording with Milli and Maya, the founders of Moom Health.
We talked about supplements specifically for women.
And there's one thing they said that we cannot stop thinking about.
We are not telling you that yet.
But you need to watch this episode before you go shopping for your next lot because this will help you cut the fat.
What's the story with?
Hi, I'm Maya.
I'm Milli.
We are sisters. I was diagnosed at a much younger age. It is very common in South Asian women, but India has the highest rate of PCOS globally. When I was diagnosed, I was just given a birth control pill.
Piece everybody always asks why Moom, so related to women's health. And it was fun and playful without being, I guess, like gimmicky. So yeah, that's the name.
What's that one supplement which doesn't deserve the hype?
I mean, I might get a lot of hate on this, but collagen powders.
Doctors aren't actually taught much about nutrition in med school. There is no such thing as like an all-in-one. So to us, it was so silly to be like, let's build a brand for Asian women and manufacture in the West. Almost everyone throughout this whole entire process is a woman. Little did we realize as we started pitching this to multiple people that it really mattered that we had never been pregnant.
Welcome to What's the Story With, where we unpack the stories behind the trends and shaping how we live today.
And today we're asking, what's the story with supplements? You know, those powders, gummies, fluids. They claim to help us glow, sleep well, feel fantastic, not age at all.
And then we have friends who say we're not going to touch anything and I just eat, healthy food and everything glows. So which is it?
Well, helping us decode and demystify all of this are two women who are based in Singapore. They founded a company called Moom Wellness, and they've turned all this curiosity into a wellness empire almost. Welcome, Milli and Maya. It's so lovely to have you guys here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thanks as well.
So tell us, how did Moom come into being?
Hi, I'm Maya.
I'm Milli.
If you can't tell, it is a little bit hard to tell maybe, but we are sisters. So Milli and I have always really wanted to start a business together. I think since we were, young, it was always in our trajectory. And I think to be pretty detailed about it, Milli had always wanted to start something as a physical product and a consumer brand. And me, on the other hand, really was passionate about the women's health space. We tested out a few ideas during COVID. We were living together for the first time in like 10 years and in the same place at the same time. And, we sat down and started to think of ideas. And the first one that popped to mind was what we call Moom. It was really this idea of creating a pregnancy platform to really reach out to pregnant women, provide different resources for them, whether it be a holistic wellness side of things, a gynecologist side of things, a naturopath, an Ayurvedic specialist, bringing together all of these practitioners and providing a platform for the pregnancy journey. Little did we realize as we started pitching this to multiple people that it really mattered that we had never been pregnant. At the time, neither of us had even really approached the conversation with pregnancy. And so we quickly realized that we needed to build a business that we had experienced the pain point ourselves. And that brought us to what you see as Moom today. And so I was diagnosed with PCOS when I was 15 years old. If we look at numbers around the world, actually India has the highest rate of PCOS globally. It is very common in South Asian women, but I was diagnosed at a much younger age than most women are. 15, I had all of the symptoms. I had an irregular period. I had really, really hairy face. I had very thin hair on my head. I didn't have like the acne and the weight gain side of PCOS, but I had pretty much everything else. I had the cysts in my ovaries as well. And when I was diagnosed, I was just given the birth control pill as a way to help solve my symptoms. And it was the first thing I was given, no questions asked. And I was put on it for around 7 or 8 years until I started noticing side effects. And at that point, I decided to go fully off any kind of like hormonal support and really dive deep into the world of natural remedies. And after years of speaking to, again, naturopaths, nutritionists, gynecologists, Ayurvedic specialists, traditional Chinese medicine specialists, Indonesian medicine specialists, I concocted a set of supplements that really worked for me. And years later, I completely solved all of my PCOS issues just through natural ways without very little side effects. And so what we realized quickly is that that was a huge gap in the market. There was no one place for women to go to have natural solutions for their women's health issues, whether it be PCOS, whether it be bloating, whether it be the pregnancy journey. And so that's really how we started Moom.
Just adding to that, I mean, Maya has a background in marketing as well. And I think both of us are very like consumer obsessed. And so when we were looking at the supplement world, especially in Southeast Asia, both of us went to college in LA. We had been exposed to, you know, all of the great wellness trends in the US. But when we looked here, nothing felt like we could relate to it at our age. It didn't feel like the same kind of feeling that you get when you buy skincare or makeup. That excitement just wasn't there in supplements. And so we kind of thought, okay, how do we create something that not only serves pain points that we have faced, but so many other women our age and beyond our age have also faced, but in a fun, exciting way that you kind of take pride in your daily ritual.
No, I agree. I mean, I've seen your products. Like I said, I get them regularly. And what really excites me is how they're packaged and what is on the liquid. So where are you?
So it's obviously a perfect partnership. So Navatell, let's go back to when it started. You know, you said the starting point, two things. Firstly, how did you decide on the name Moom, even for the pregnancy brand? Like, why Moom? Let's start with that.
I wish there was a better story to this, but basically we had done everything for the business. We had the business plan, the experts, the advisors. We had found a manufacturer for both our original idea as well as then, we continued on with it. And we just couldn't figure out a name. So of course, 4 years ago, ChatGPT was not there, but we went to Google and we literally said, how do you name a brand?
Like literally, what do you do when you're naming a brand?
And an article popped up about Gwyneth Paltrow and how she was naming her company Goop. And she had basically said that one of her tech advisors had mentioned to her that there has been a historical amount of success in companies that have 2 O's, specifically if they are e-commerce focused. So like Google, Yahoo, Zoom, Facebook. Okay, at the time it was Facebook. There is and now if you think about it, the list is very, very large. And so actually our mom was like, oh, why don't you guys do Moom? It's like Milli, Maya, and 2 O's. And obviously because the idea came from our mom, immediately it was like, no, that's very stupid. But as we kept saying it, and I think as we kept thinking about it, it kind of became this conversation piece. Everybody always asks why Moom. And second, I think, some people were like, oh, did you name it because of like moon cycles? So related to women's health or related to your mom. So like your mom is the one giving you advice. And people had so many ideas around it that we were like, oh, this kind of sticks and it works and it makes sense. And it was fun and playful without being, I guess, like gimmicky in that sense. So yeah, that's the name.
So let's now dive into the world of supplements and get specific with a few questions. So what's that one supplement that you both cannot live without?
For me personally, it's Happy Hormones. So Happy Hormones is an inositol blend supplement. It is a 40-to-1 like Myo to D-Chiro inositol blend. It is a very powerful supplement for women with PCOS. If you've ever heard of metformin, which is actually like a clinical drug, inositol can actually almost replicate a lot of times the outcomes that metformin gives, but 100% naturally. And so it's a super powerful supplement. I mix it in my green tea every single day. And I am one of those women that have literally never had a regular period in my life. And if I'm consistent with this supplement, like it comes every single month now. And that has obviously transformed my life. I think like a very real way of sharing it as well is when I went to a gynecologist like 5 years ago, I was a very classic PCOS case with cysts on my ovaries. I had like the string of pearls, what they call, so like a set of eggs just inside of my lining. And I went the other day and the doctor literally asked me like, who told you you have PCOS? And I was like, what do you mean? I'm like a classic PCOS case. And she's like, oh, I don't know if I would diagnose you with that today.
I think for me, it's probably magnesium. I think it's considered like a wonder supplement for women, but I am a very horrible sleeper.
Yeah.
And I think taking magnesium daily has changed my, I mean, I don't want to be dramatic and say changed my life, but it has changed the way I sleep, which has in turn changed my life, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would
And
say
like
magnesium.
migraines and stuff.
Yeah, and I typically get quite clinical migraines. And so yeah, I think increasing my intake of magnesium has really helped with that as well.
Which is the one supplement you think that people are just overdoing for the trend of it, for the sake of it? You know, what's or secretly or whatever. What's that one supplement which doesn't deserve the hype?
I mean, I might get a lot of hate on this, but collagen powders.
Really?
You
Oh
have
my
to
God.
consume a lot of collagen for it to actually be impacting. So
I mean,
think,
but the good thing about collagen is it's not doing any harm.
yeah, most collagen, I think most collagen powders, like the dose tends to be like 15 mg or something. You should actually be consuming like 50 to 60 milligrams a day.
Multivitamins very rarely have enough of each ingredient to actually like contribute to making a difference in your body.
But the purpose of a multivitamin is like it's an all-in-one. So we always say it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Like if you know you're not going to take 4 or 5 different things.
But speaking of multivitamins, and like you said, I mean, you know, this was the age-old grandmother wisdom thing of you must have one multivitamin a day, or vitamins or these supplements were associated with children. Like our kids must have that supplementation of vitamin D, for example, in India is absolutely essential, or calcium, yada yada. So it was bracketed into either the very young or the elderly. You know, at what point has it become a part of everybody's everyday lives to have so much supplementation?
The issue with the food that we eat today is you can look at, I mean, the soil and the food that we ate 40, 50, 100 years ago. It's very different than what we eat today. There's so much more processed food. Like even if you try to avoid it, it's still going to creep into your diet. And even if you eat a fully whole food diet, like no one is eating only organic. Even if you eat only organic, like it's not necessary that like these organic sources are fully trusted. Sometimes it doesn't mean that you're getting full nutrients from it. The way that we eat today, like in the past, lunch was the biggest meal of the day. Now dinner happens to be the biggest meal of the day. Like there's so many changes in the way that we consume food that most of us are not getting what we need. Vitamin D is a great example of that, because in the past, like people are working outside all day long. Jobs were actually all outside.
Being
Lunch
outside,
is the biggest meal of the day. You're exposed to sunlight. That probably came with a lot of other issues, like you need to use sunblock every day, but that's different. You're not able to absorb as much vitamin D. Indian skin, like because of the melanin and the way it's produced, we don't absorb as much vitamin D. So people can understand that really easily. I think to then explain to everyone, like break down your diet for me and tell me like where the hell the soil is that you're getting things from. Like no one can even tell you that. And so your average like mineral and vitamin limits, like this isn't talking about the herbs and stuff, is already lower than like most people's. Then in comes like stress. And stress doesn't only mean like, oh my God, I'm stressed every day at work, but it can also be environmental stressors, looking at your screen all day, living a more sedentary life. Like all of this contributes to a different way our like nervous system is reacting to things, our digestive systems, like all of the systems in our bodies are really being thrown off. And so that's why actually supplementation is really important today. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be eating a very good diet as well or trying to move, but we also have to be slightly realistic. Like Millie and I run a wellness brand and like we still eat McDonald's sometimes. Like it's just the reality.
Exactly. So talking about balance over here, thanks to social media. Well, it all has its, good and bad, but there's a lot of hype. I know people who take 17 or 20, supplements. There is a lot of FOMO around it. Am I not taking my collagen? Is my skin not glowing? What's that? There is FOMO now around supplements. So how do you balance that out?
I think, yes, unfortunately. So while social media has given us a lot of information and we now know so much, I think also we realistically, not all of us are going to become Andrew Hubermans and Brian Johnsons. Like, we cannot have the 6-hour morning routine.
Do we want to?
Yeah, or
exactly.
like is that even like, I don't really want to wake up at 3:55 in the morning and go to
Thank you.
sleep.
Enjoy our lives.
That
dude.
doesn't apply to me.
Yeah.
But I think there is, I mean, we always say do what you can.
Yeah.
I think even with supplements, like when people will ask us, oh, but like, should I also take this? I think Maya and I have always kind of taken the perspective is like, will you actually take 5 supplements a day? Or is that going to be the thing that then limits you from taking even one?
Yeah.
Right. I think it's very similar to, I mean, even like we always equate things to skincare because I think people just like understand skincare very easily now. But yeah, if you're not even like putting on a sunscreen every day, are you going to add on your like hyaluronic acid and your ceramides and your, I don't know, whatever other serums you put on your face? Most likely not. So I think just finding what works for you and what you can actually incorporate into your daily rituals. And I think that's kind of where we also focused a lot on like packaging with our products, was like creating the sachets which have your 5 or 6 products in there so that you don't have to have that clutter by your bedside. It's the one box. It has your 30-day supply with, the 5 or 6 or 4 or 3 supplements you take every single day. Like making sure that in our powder supplements that we have, they can all be taken together if you want to take them together. And B, the flavors all work together when you put them together. So
Many of these questions, and there are so many supplements out there already, so it's quite brave of you guys, and especially in Singapore. It's a small market, right? How did you overcome those fears?
For reference, like supplements are typically a minimum order is like 1 million capsules. That's very, very normal. We had bootstrapped the business. It was just whatever, little savings Maya and I had. And yeah, we didn't have the funds. And so, yeah, that was quite difficult. I think finding our expert board as well. So we work with a set of expert formulators. That took quite a lot of time.
Yeah.
To find that, the right people to work with us and the people that like believed in what we were doing as well.
And I think even people that actually have expertise in supplements, like a lot of times people think, oh, like, why don't you have a bunch of doctors on your board? Well, the reality is doctors aren't actually taught much about nutrition or mineral limits or vitamin limits in med school. That is actually the expertise of a naturopath or nutritionist. And so, switching in our heads, like, how do we really build a credible brand? And yes, there are so many supplements out there, but how many are founded with a nutritionist on board? How many are actually using a board of experts outside of their manufacturing that really, really care deeply about the ingredients, what's going into each of them, and not just taking something off of the shelf? So I think the biggest struggle was also checking all the boxes that we needed before we started, and not just going for the easiest route. I think that was like super important to us. For example, like when you build a supplement brand, oftentimes people say like you should go to the US or you should go to Australia for your manufacturing. And we did that at the beginning, and we were looking through the ingredient sources and we found all of them were coming from Asia. So to us, it was so silly to be like, let's build a brand for Asian women. That was a big part of what we wanted to do, and manufacture in the West. When all the ingredients are being grown in India, in China, in Asia. And so we also then went a step back and said, okay, actually, we want to build the business for Asia, in Asia as much as possible. If you think about the environment, we're reducing carbon footprint. Like there are so many pluses. And so we actually went to India, and that's where we manufacture today, because so many of the herbs that we use are obviously grown in India.
But just let's go back to Moom for a second. You decided, okay, fine, we're manufacturing in Asia/India. So what's the process like today? Now that I'm guessing you have some funds in hand, and and you have your wellness board, etc. So now, what is the process? How does it all work? And how do you maintain your quality control, your consistency? Just take us through just the process.
Yeah, so typically, actually, now I would say our process starts with our customer base and our community. So, a big part of the way that we have grown Moom very intentionally has been to grow it alongside our community. So, whether if it's through Instagram, through social media, through our EDM, through events, whatever it may be, you can be an active contributor to not only Moom as a brand, but the actual products we're putting out there. So everything we have been putting out has literally been things that have been asked by the community. So it usually starts with that. So let's say we're developing a product, and then we'll give that to our formulators. So to our expert board. These are experts in naturopathy, nutrition.
How many experts do you have in this board?
So we have 4 full-time experts. And then we'll get, like, for example, if we in the future ever do something for pregnancy, we would work with a gynecologist as well. We're launching something next year for skin. And so we've worked with a dermatologist as well. So then we will bring on like external experts. But we have 2 chief formulators. One is based in Australia and one is actually based in Japan. And they are the ones that will then kind of look through whatever we're trying to create and say, okay, we suggest ABCD formulations. You guys should try them out. We then will send that to our R&D team. We've actually created an R&D team that sits within our manufacturing facility. So that was something that we built like a year or so
and
after.
One thing, just to not to interrupt, but one thing that's like very important to us in this process is almost everyone throughout this whole entire process is a woman. So everything
Everyone is a woman.
Everyone's a woman.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
And that actually includes even the people working at our manufacturing facility. So our entire production line is all women, which is quite cool. But yeah, so then usually it'll go to our R&D team, who will then create several variations of the formulations. It'll either be, if it's a powder, then we might have variations on taste. If it's a capsule, it might be variations on potency. And they'll source ingredients from all over the world. If there's a specific ingredient that we're looking for, we can request for that, of course, regardless of where it is grown or patented or clinically tested, or they will suggest ingredients as well. And then that gets sent to us to begin consumer trials. Everything is also third-party tested with a lab, with one of the largest labs in the world. Sorry, with one of the largest labs in the world called Eurofins. They do testing for every brand under the sun, basically. So we have them as a third party, and then also sometimes we will also even extend that further to then getting clinical trials done, depending on the product and the ingredients. So that one kind of varies, but yeah, we'll usually do consumer trials. Typically at least 4 to 5 rounds of consumer trials, which is all done like within our community as well. Once a product is deemed safe for consumption by the public, we will then, it'll be voluntary, but usually we get between 100 to 200 women to sign up within, an hour or so. And then, and then once the product is efficacious to the point that we would want it to be, or we've gotten the feedback that we want it to, then we will launch it. So the timeline of launching is usually between 9 to 12 months.
From conception to production.
Yeah, and I think we sort of think of it as this like very circular loop from starting with our community and ending with our community.
Abhi, talking about launching, I had a thought of it. Is there any approval that you need to take from the Singapore government? I mean, are there FDA regulations? Do they have to get, do you have to pass certain kind of guidelines and stuff over here?
What's quite interesting about the supplement space is every single country has a different set of regulations. One could call that interesting. On our side, it's very irritating. In Singapore, things are actually quite relaxed. That being said, there are certain limitations to amounts of vitamin and mineral limits. There are certain ingredients that are banned that might not be banned in another country. Same thing with Malaysia, where we operate.
Such as? Like what is banned in Singapore that's not banned in other countries?
So like milk thistle, for example. Yeah, there's a huge limit on that. Berberine is a good example. It's used traditionally as a traditional Chinese medicine, and so you cannot use it as a supplement brand unless you are registered under TCM. So there are regulations like that in every country. However, no country requires third-party testing, what Millie was saying we do with Eurofins. So in theory, many supplement brands can lie about what they have on the back of a label because your manufacturer can say, hey, you have 40 milligrams of B vitamins in your supplement. And you can put that on a label and never get it tested, right? Because your manufacturer can lie. What we do, and there's a small percentage of brands in the world that do this, is you can send it to a lab and make sure that what the manufacturer says is true. And there's obviously a 0.1 or 2% variance on it. That's just testing, and each batch could be slightly different. But yes, we do that because, to be honest, we are consuming these products as well.
Okay, going back to some of the fun stuff, from one of your earlier stories of when you just started out, what customer, consumer, friend feedback was there that still makes you smile and makes it all worth it?
We ran a beta test before we launched for about 6 months. We were packaging every single supplement ourselves for the first year, but for the beta test, we were using like mini Ziploc bags. We were putting stickers on every single Ziploc bag just to get proof of concept, to ensure like people were actually enjoying the way that we presented the brand, figuring out the branding of it, how everything actually like went into play, how deliveries made sense. And I think it's really cool because some of the customers we had on that beta, we did 50 friends and 50 friends of friends that we didn't know. And some of those people are still like avid customers of Moom today.
With this kind of goes back to us taking community feedback very intensely, I guess. But originally when we launched our magnesium supplement, it was 300 milligrams or 350. 450 milligrams, which is quite normal for a magnesium supplement. That you would get from any of these like larger brands that you would think of. But we slowly started to see a lot of complaints about people not being able to digest it, or feeling like their stomach was hurting, or they needed to run to the bathroom, or whatever it may be. And so we actually went back to our formulation team, and our chief formulator was like, you know what? The average body mass in a country like Singapore is much lower than, let's say, Australia or
India.
or actually like most of the West, you could say, whether it's due to height, weather, whatever it may be. So she recommended that we actually reduce the dose. And since reducing the dose, I mean, magnesium is like one of our best sellers. So I think it's not like a specific feedback point, but I think it was something that really made us understand why it was so important to listen to our consumers and be able to be nimble and make those changes. I mean, I think that's like one of the biggest benefits of being a smaller company as well, is that we're able to do that. So yeah, and I think just as we've continued launching products and hearing stories from people about the way certain products have helped them, or our bestseller today is called Happy Hormones. Yeah. And, when women are saying like, I've never had a regular period, and for the first time in 15 years, 20 years, like I have a regular cycle, like that's always really nice. And then a lot of times women will be like, I have a regular cycle. I've been tracking it. I've been trying to get pregnant for X amount of months, and it happened finally.
That is fantastic. That's so inspirational.
Has being in Singapore contributed significantly to your success?
Right.
I think ulta.
I guess like both yes and no. I think for us, it's really like a big differentiator for us in our brand is our brand. There are very few brands in the world even that stand specifically for women's health. That aren't trying to also sell to men at the same time. Like we have gotten investors saying this. Our team sometimes says like, oh, we want to target men. Like this product would work for men. And that is kind of like a line that we have always drawn. Like we do not have interest in that. We are no longer a niche in the world. We're like over 50% of the population.
Oh my God.
Right? Like to say that women's health is a niche is actually just like so ridiculous. So I think like that is number one. And there hasn't necessarily been a brand that is as approachable as us. That's not to say there aren't other brands that do really great supplements, right? There are a lot of age-old brands that have very good supplements. Himalaya has a great like ashwagandha supplement. That's not to say that like ours is necessarily better or worse, but we are branded in a sense that it is a lot easier to understand what these supplements are used for. So I think for Singapore specifically, and even Malaysia as we've launched there, like because the products are very easily digestible, not in the sense of like through your gut, but just as an understanding and educational standpoint, people have been able to kind of resonate with them. So I think, yes, like supplements are a growing category in every country in the world.
The government really does support small businesses. We always say like we tick a lot of boxes. We're like female founded in health, all of these things. So yeah, I think there's a lot of support that comes from being in Singapore. And again, being a small market, it's been I would assume it's been much easier. It's much easier to not only meet other founders, be connected with other people, really learn from founders in different industries as well, and really build that network as well. And I think that's been maybe not so directly a benefit to Moom as a whole, but I think to us as founders has been a huge benefit.
And also being in Singapore, I feel being associated with Singapore and then going out of the world later, in any case, brings with it a lot of credibility. You know, for a fact, if it's allowed to be sold in Singapore,
It's cool. Do you know what I mean? It is that because it's such, somehow. Okay, coming back to again, social media, instant gratification, taking a pill, or like let's talk about your green powder, for example. I have two boys, 18 and 20, and they fix some other green powders, and I should look at them and say, they're like, we don't need vegetables anymore. We're having this powder. And then I was like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. This is 2 years later, and now I have your green powder.
I get myself a sampler box of everything.
But I would still say you need to eat green vegetables.
That's what I told them. But you see, so is it a shortcut? Is it a quick fix, or it is an add-on?
Or is it a guilt avoider? Okay, I've had the green powder today. I don't need to eat veggies.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination, but I think the way we view health and supplements to us is not necessarily about, or I guess like nutrition and diet. It's not about like what I can take away, but what I can add in. So if we go back to the McDonald's example, like I am still going to eat my McDonald's sometimes. I'm not necessarily going to take that away, but can I add in like maybe my super greens the day that I eat the McDonald's so that I'm not like, cheating on every single meal? Also with our greens, like if you notice and compare it to a lot of other greens on the market, we haven't really created an all-in-one supplement ever. And the reason for that is like, to be honest, we don't really believe in them. There is no such thing as like an all-in-one. You should have your greens every day. It doesn't include that much. Honestly, our greens is very simply like vegetables, fruits, and fiber. It's just an added amount of fiber into your day, because in the same way that people are like, oh my God, you need more protein in your diet, you actually need more fiber. If you don't take the fiber, the protein's not going to like synthesize in the body and like actually do anything for you. So I think it's just looking at it in that respect, like, okay, what can I add on that is going to help support everything else I'm doing in my health? So that's kind of how we view super greens. Actually, for us, super greens was created because women have a higher rate of constipation than men. It is like very normal for women to get constipated, especially as we age. And so we built super greens around this idea of like building a fiber product, actually.
Okay, what are the three must-haves?
What are the
Three supplements that are absolutely essential?
What stage you're at.
For me, I'm 47 years old. I've menopaused. Tell me for me.
Probably it would be a magnesium, an omega-3. It can be vegan or not vegan. That's a personal choice. And something probably for anti-inflammation, or, I mean, again, it would depend on what, it could even be, like a curcumin, berberine as well, if like metabolism is something. I actually think out of our selection of products, it would probably be MetaBoost, which is our product that helps with blood sugar levels and insulin sensitivity, which is something that just happens naturally as you get older.
Yeah, because blood metabolism slows down as you age as well, especially after menopause or during menopause.
So yeah, I mean, magnesium and an omega for sure. And then from the Moom selection, Meta Boost. But otherwise, I think, like a berberine would be great, or some kind of a curcumin, turmeric, some kind of anti-inflammatory ingredient.
And then the last one I think that we don't have would be protein.
Yeah.
With Ayurveda, when you are to take curcumin or turmeric, you're supposed to boil kacha haldi, right, which is like the raw turmeric, with ginger and black pepper, and let it come to a boil, and then drink it to truly harness the power and benefits of that herb. You know, so how does that translate into this?
Yeah, so actually our curcumin supplement has black pepper in it, because you're right, like you can't absorb it without that. And we use a patented curcumin
that is extracted from raw curcumin. So essentially it's the exact same thing. I think it goes back to the convenience factor.
If you can take kacha haldi and like make that at home, please go ahead
and like make sure it's enough of it, and you're getting like, 200 mg. I mean, I guess I would do that. I'm just
Also, the downside of that formulation is that you'll get yellow teeth. Also, and it's a yellow teeth or regularity.
Exactly right. There's always going to be like life gets in the way, basically.
Travel. Oh, there's so many things. It's just, I take your curcumin and I know, okay, I've got my, little fix. My husband walks around with a bottle with ginger and turmeric, which is made at home.
So it's interesting to see.
But what do you guys lean towards more? Is natural remedies a big part of your, product? No, I mean, we see it, but where is that influence coming from? And there is a lot of that we see in your product. So how have you balance that out?
We always joke our mom was like the OG wellness influencer. If Instagram existed at the time that, she would want to post about herself, she would have been like millions of followers.
Yeah, like Maya and I are both competitive swimmers through school and college. And like in school, she would pick us up at, 7 a.m. to go to school from swim practice with like a green juice and a beetroot something, and like force us to drink it at the age of 10. And we would just do it because like otherwise she would get mad. But now it's like, oh, those things are so normal. Now I'm like begging her to make me green juice because like I'm too lazy to clean a juicer.
It's so funny. We have an amla supplement, and we always look back like at our nani's house in Delhi, like a tree. So it's like we've kind of like grown up with all of these things around us. I think just adding a little bit of modernity to it while still like staying true to, what we've been raised on is kind of how we approach wellness. Personally.
Yeah. And I think even when you think about like minerals and stuff, I mean, I remember from like our high school swim coach always told us you need to take magnesium as a swimmer, as, you have to do this as whatever protein.
Or like electrolytes.
Yeah. Like electrolytes have always been very much part of our lives. So I think for us, it hasn't been like a trend that set in all of a sudden. It's just always been part of our lives.
Yeah,
absolutely. Now you've just made it more relevant to the times that you live in today. So it just becomes accessible to all. That's pretty much it. Okay. I want to just quickly ask you a couple of things, that you discussed electrolytes, like that's such an important part of hydration, etc. Now, what happened in India recently, and I don't know if you were tracking it, was this lady who's finally won this hard-fought case because, again, maybe for lack of regulation or because of people who are so quick to mimic, people were bottling very sugary drinks and just slapping ORS on it. ORS basically salts if you're getting dehydrated or to hydrate you, etc. So what is your take on that entire controversy and the fact that electrolytes can be or something can be marketed under the garb of electrolytes, which may not necessarily be good for you, and the side effects of all of that?
Some people say, and this is like experts, that sugar is actually required in an electrolyte. But I think with that case, yes, there is a danger and this is not only in electrolytes, this is in supplements in general. Yeah. This is in skincare. This is in any not hyper regulated industry and space. You can market anything. And I think, there is definite responsibility on a brand. And I think that's where, like, you know, the trust factor really comes in. But I do think that there's a little bit of responsibility on a consumer as well. If you see a drink that has, you know, 25 grams of sugar, you may as well just drink a Coke,
Yeah.
right? Like,
You know, we've come to a stage now, we all turn around and see labels because of these things. You know, gone are the days where you just pick up something off the counter and say, let's run with it.
What's the biggest red flag actually that you should look at? Outside of the normal, you know, sucralose or glucose, is it, like, what is that? What's the red flag in supplements that you should say, okay, no, this is not good? Is there one?
Coloring is not great for you.
I mean,
Like stearates,
additives.
yeah. An unnecessary amount of additives. I think when you look at a supplement label, or let's say even like a electrolyte label, whether it's like ready to drink or you have to mix it with something, if the first ingredient is not something that you should actually be consuming, and it's like sugar or some kind of fake starch, that's probably not great, because you do actually have to list them in order of how much of every ingredient is in there. It's kind of like when you look at a chocolate bar or something, right? Like, if the first ingredient is just
cocoa,
that's probably not the greatest chocolate bar for you. It might be the tastiest chocolate bar, but it's not probably like the best for you. So I think just thinking about it like that.
Yeah, I think just like quickly adding on, you should actually be able to understand most of a supplement label. Okay. It shouldn't be a bunch of words that you can't understand. I think that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Tell us about supplements. I mean, before we go into our fun ging section, what is a healthy way to take a break? Do you need to, like, you know, empty out your system, clean up your system, you know, stop everything, start? You know, some nutritionists say 6 weeks take this, give it a break. So what is the optimum way of taking supplements?
I think if you are looking to really like track differences, I think it all comes down to, are you actually going to track? So if you're going to cycle on and off things, you need to understand what's going on in your body to ensure that like you're making a difference in it. Because I think if you go on something for 6 weeks and you're not really thinking about, oh, what are the changes? And then you go off it for another 6 weeks and you're not really thinking about what are the changes. Like, there's really no point in either way, in either taking or not taking, right? So I think as long as you're doing that in a very like monitored way, it's a good way to look at it. I think it goes back to the question of like efficacy as well. Like, a lot of times people say like, oh, I've been taking this for like 5 months and I don't see a difference. But okay, have you asked yourself, when's the last time you've gotten sick? Have you asked yourself, have you gotten a pimple recently? Have you asked yourself, like, are you feeling more energetic? Like, if you haven't asked yourself any of those questions, then like, what was the point of taking it in the first place? So I think that's it. But safest way, I mean, is to, number one, take a safe supplement. Number two, which like I think we've kind of elaborated on, I think number two, cycling on and off really just depends on the ingredients. So if you're like a biohacker, you should cycle on and off ashwagandha. If you are taking a protein powder or like an inositol, like Happy Hormones, our product, you don't really need to be cycling off of that.
Are you gearing towards, is sexual health or sexual, what should I say, robustness or a good sex life a part of the Moom plan?
Yeah, I think like sexual wellness, sexual health, on a women's health perspective, yes, is probably, you know, in the future down the pipeline, but not so much on the men's health side of things.
Actually, men's is out. We've discussed that. Let's forget that.
Yeah, I mean, like a good example is like we have a few supplements that can help with like libido. We have like for menopause, there are a few supplements, like even MetaBoost, just enhancing your metabolism will also like affect your sexual wellness. But another thing is like we have a supplement called Healthy V. It's a vaginal health supplement. It supports UTIs, bacterial vaginosis. Like, that's not necessarily like sexual health, but it also supports like a healthy discharge, which can also affect your sexual health. Like, there is a bleeding into. I think eventually as we grow, we might go further into like the libido side of things. But like taking care of your hormonal health is also going to affect your sexual health. So a lot of these things like bleed into each other. And reproductive health is a big part of it as well.
So what is a sensible amount of, what is a sensible budget to keep aside every month to make sure you have the optimal or at least basic supplementation, actually? Not optimal, but basic supplementation with Moom?
Yeah.
Like $40 to $50 a month. Our average, let's say, basket size is around like between $50 to $60. So not more than that.
But quickly on weight loss, you know,
Your thoughts on Manjaro and Ozempic and all the GLP-1s, basically?
Yeah, so I mean, we have mixed thoughts on them. I think so. GLP-1 is really interesting. GLP-1 is actually like a hormone in our body. It's naturally occurring in everyone, so it already exists for every single person on the planet. What happens when you are diabetic is you are very much depleted of GLP-1. So that is why things like Ozempic is really helpful for people that are diabetic, pre-diabetic, that have issues with their metabolism, because their GLP-1 reserves are very, very low, and they need something to help them get to this level. Most people, however, can naturally enhance their GLP-1 from like here to here by supplementation, by the way they eat their food, by, you know, the way they exercise, all of those things. What happens with GLP-1 is you increase your reserves to like here, and it's very hard to come down from there, because if you are used to having a metabolism and GLP-1 levels and hormone levels all the way up to here, how are you ever going to come off of that in a very healthy way? So that's like the downside of GLP-1. We do not judge anyone who's on them. Like,
I mean, I think if you need it,
you should
like,
take it.
take it.
But can you
Yeah,
what would you supplement that GLP journey with to optimize it?
protein is huge. Magnesium, zinc. I think you have to take quite a lot, because it's kind of like, I mean, not same issues, but like when you're on a birth control pill, you should 100% be supplementing with magnesium, zinc, and B complex, because the birth control pill naturally depletes your body of those three minerals. So with GLP-1s, I am assuming it's a lot. I know protein is one that like is a must, but yeah, there are a lot of others as well.
but in your with Moom, is there something I know that, you know, I've been seeing some ads on that where it had the same sort of effect, is what you guys are saying?
Yeah, so it's definitely not anywhere near as drastic as Ozempic. Like, I don't think we can
Or
ever,
as a GLP-1.
or as a GLP-1 booster. But what Meta Boost does is it helps with blood sugar spikes, insulin resistance, and supporting GLP-1 production in the body. So there is an ingredient in Meta Boost called Regicose. It is actually like a mulberry leaf extract, and it has been clinically proven to actually support GLP-1 levels. So what it does, the way it works, is it basically stabilizes your GLP-1 levels. What happens with a lot of people with, again, environmental factors, the food they eat, the way that we age today, is GLP-1 does naturally decrease. Like, your metabolism slows down as you get older. We all know that. What MetaBoost does is, if you can intervene and help stabilize your GLP-1 levels, you can maybe get it from like here to here. So like a slight increase, or even just as is, and like you have a straight line for a longer period of time, rather than negative, decline, right? And then a GLP-1 booster is going to go like that. So what we want is actually just stabilization. And then there are other ways to help improve your diet, your exercise, all of those things.
What does your day look like supplement wise?
I usually start my day with super greens. That's like my form of caffeine in the morning. I'm not really a coffee person. I have it as like a treat. At some point in the day, we'll have, again, like what Maya says, I'm sipping on it right now, but I put happy hormones into like a green tea or some kind of tea that I'm drinking in the day. And it kind of becomes this sweetness into a plain green tea. And then at night, I'll take my daily supplements. So a magnesium, zinc, probiotic, a vegan omega, and I take vitamin D as well. And then I'll end the night most recently with, again, like a magnesium powder. Also, I'm just a horrible sleeper, so it just helps me a lot. So we have a new product that's launching next month called Mellow Mag, which is a magnesium and lemon balm powder. So yeah, I mix it in hot water and have that at the end of the day.
Yeah, so I'll usually start my day with Meta Boost. Millie actually does that when she's not pregnant, but I start my day with Menopause. I'm obsessed with coffee, so like I need my coffee in the morning. But I do try to eat something as well, and then halfway through the day, I'll take my happy hormones with a tea as well. And then I am occasional super greens drinker. I have like kind of an overactive gut, so I don't take probiotics or super greens that often because I already go to the bathroom enough. And then at night, I will take like my daily supplements, mainly targeting hormonal health. So for me, it's a vegan omega, it's a zinc, and it is an ashwagandha as well to help with stress. And I think there's one more that I'm forgetting. Curcumin, yeah. And then most recently, rather than taking the magnesium tablet, I do take Melomag because I like it as a drink at night. So we don't always take all of our products.
Yeah.
All right, we'll let you go. I mean, we have a question for another podcast. So hopefully we'll have you back in soon whenever you guys have the time. You're in the middle of so many things. So congratulations on it all.
But there's a lot of solace and comfort in knowing that these two girls who are so on top of their game are in charge, and they're making sure everything is brilliant, ethical, well formulated, and absolutely legit. So thank you so much for bringing these outstanding products to the market.
Thank you.
I think
Thank you so much for
converted
having
somebody in me. I hadn't tried yours, but I'm going to make sure I go running to get myself a
Yay.
stash. But thank you so much for joining us and
you.
educating all of us.